Hey everyone, I hope all of you are doing well and welcome to Beaversdam because I don't have another name yet in mind, but today we are building a Beaver's Habitat and a train station, starting with the train station. And Beaversdam is potentially going to be a new series on the channel. I don't know for sure yet, but I do know for sure that there's going to be at least 2 episodes, and if I plan to make it a little bit more of like a full series, which it's going to be like Ozaru skill, so it's going to be at most 10 to 12 episodes. Kane probably already knows that you have to double that, because whenever I say like an amount of episodes, it's easier to double it because I never really stick to the amount of episodes I say. Beaversdam is going to be a Dutch zoo, or at least it's going to be a zoo in a Dutch style village. And of course today we're starting off with the sort of train station and the Beaver's Habitat, but in the next episode I plan to build a little bit more of like the town, because well, by the end of today's episode we only have the train station and the Beaver Habitat. But this is the point where I should say let's get into today's build. But anyway, so when it comes to Beaversdam, it's going to be a little bit more of like a wishful thinking zoo, because it's going to be mostly uninhabited, because we don't have beavers, and if I plan to make this into a larger series, then I plan to have otters, foxes, and just a lot of animals that we don't have in Planet Zoo as of yet, but I really want to have in Planet Zoo. I am never satisfied with the animals that we do have, but I've been particularly vocal, especially in the streams, about wanting beavers, and this is maybe like a shameless plug of the streams, but I hopefully will be back to streaming on Twitch coming Friday, because finally the heatwave has started to go away and I can finally think full thoughts again, besides I am melting. So hopefully the streams will be back on Friday. But as I said, I've been especially vocal about wanting to get beavers in Planet Zoo, and then yeah, it's mostly because I want an animal that's just very different to build for. So beavers are mostly aquatic, but they do have like, you know, they get their food mostly off land. I want just an animal that is very different to build for, is in a sort of biome that we don't really have, because well, we have the biome but not just the animals for it, because Europe alongside Australia and I think North America is one of the continents that we have the least animals for. Especially sad little Australia, because I think we only have exhibit animals, and I don't count exhibit animals as actual animals, because kind of like the hotels of Planet Coaster, they are there, but then they are somewhat just boxes with an animation. So I like, of course, that there are exhibit animals, but for like building purposes they don't really have that huge of an impact in the game, especially for builders like me. They are just kind of filler, like they're there to attract guests, which for me makes even less sense, because I don't think I've ever opened any of my zoos besides Ozaru. I think Isla Pacifica has never been opened. Ken al-Bashar I don't think actually has an entrance yet. And what were the other zoos? Yeah, Ozaru was opened. Valhalla also never had an entrance, so there were so many. But also a quick note on Valhalla, because that's a series that I cancelled after the first episode. I plan to bring it back in the winter, because I've noticed the thing where I build things dependent on the current situation. So I mean, what's better than to have a Viking zoo in the middle of winter? But anyway, I should get back to what we're building right now, because there's actually a big mistake in this train station, which I did not want to fix after I realized what it was. But this train station is supposed to be like old school, like it's supposed to be like built maybe around the time that the trains first started being made or first started to pop up around the world. And then I realized, Oh yeah, the first trains ran on coal, and that gives a lot of smoke. And most train stations, I think, from back in that time are where the actual trains come in is like a huge open space or it's just open air. And then this station actually covers that. So yeah, this train station, if it was a station, is going to be completely covered in smoke and soot from the train. Even back then, they knew that that's. I don't know if they knew that it was unhealthy to be there, but they knew it wasn't the, nicest place to be. So my excuse for this, because this isn't really a story behind the building, it's more of like an excuse because I didn't want to change it. But my idea was that this was never really a train station, it was more of like a maintenance depot or something. Like the place where the trains would go to, if they needed repairs or something, or just needed like a general inspection, they would go here. So the train wouldn't really be running in this building. But then after some time, because I don't want Beaversdam, and again, that's not an original name because it's literally taken from the first habitat and from the location, but then I'm going to go into that a little bit more later. But I want Beaversdam to be modern, so the habitats are going to be somewhat more realistic than what I usually do. So no floating islands or something like that. And it's not going to be like a historical place. Well, there's history, but it's more of like, yeah, it was built in the past and now it's like some kind of like open air museum with animals. So for the people who really wanted realism, this could be realistic, but yeah, it's more of like the idea of like an open air museum, which can actually work with like the train station because, well, I've seen some open air museums where they have like old style trains running through it. Well, not the trains, but trains to, ferry guests from place to place if it's like a large museum. But yeah, it's going to be a little bit more realistic, even though I made a big excuse for the train station to be there. But I really just didn't want to change the station. I was really happy with it. I tried to make like the inside look a little bit more pretty, I would say. But it's mostly just like, how can I cover up the bricks on the inside without going on the like 10,000 pieces road? Because I first thought of like a tiled wall, but then the tiles had to be tiny. And then the only thing that I could think of to make those tiled walls was to use the circuit box or like the electricity box that most people use for like mosaics in the game. But then I realized, oh yeah, to cover that entire wall I would need at least 200 on one wall. Yeah, that's going to be a little bit extreme. In the end I just decided like maybe some plaster or just, yeah, they plastered the walls, and because it's like a maintenance depot, it's not a real train station, they didn't really care that it didn't look the best. Because of course when it's a real train station, they would do a bit more of a better job at making it look pretty. Anyways, so now we're getting onto the actual beaver habitat, which for me, I wanted to make it in like the old harbor of the town or village, because you can already hear it here, but I already said in the beginning, if I'm correct, because I have the mind or the memory of a goldfish. But I want to make this into like an Ozaru scale series, so it's going to be mostly 10 episodes, but then I say town, and then I'm immediately like, I also said that Guyana Bashar would be a town, I think, where Isla Pacifica would be a town, and then, yeah, that didn't really happen. Isla Pacifica, well, is a town, but was supposed to be a village. Guyana Bashar was supposed to be a town and is now going to be a full-blown city. It's already frightful when I start calling things towns when it's supposed to be a village. But yeah, the Beaver Habitat is going to be in like the old harbor, which of course by this point isn't used anymore, so they sort of wanted to incorporate something of the name into the actual like sort of museum. So I don't know if I can call this a zoo or a museum. But anyway, so they basically let the beavers have the run of the old harbor, and kind of like homage to the actual like name of the town. Because I want to have a story with like beavers. Why is the town called Beaversdam besides there now being an actual beaver habitat in there? So maybe this was, you know, on the side or built on the side of a beaver's dam, or like a beaver's dam was like very important for its history. So, and I'm already going to say yes, the name is not, well, not original at all. I think if you get to like the Dutch version of the name, which here's your Dutch word of the day, but beaver in Dutch is bever, so it's not that different. But I think that's an actual town. I think that's an actual town in the Netherlands. This might be like revoking my Dutch card, but I don't think we as Dutch people are that, you know, original or creative when it comes to place names. Because as I always said, I think Beaversdam, or well, in Dutch it would be Beversdam, is probably an actual town in the Netherlands. But then the biggest cities are like Rotterdam and Amsterdam. And that's basically because of their location, because those names are basically two things combined. Because Amsterdam and Rotterdam, like Amsterdam was built on the place where there was a dam in the river Amstel, Amsterdam. Rotterdam was built on the place where there was a dam in the river the Rotte, Rotterdam. But then I think that's with a lot of places actually in like Europe or maybe even all over the world. Places were named after like, well, landmarks in or in the surrounding area. So Beaversdam is somewhat accurate. So maybe there was a beaver dam here at some point, and of course when the town grew, the beavers were sort of scared away, and now with the open air museum, I still don't know if it's going to be a zoo or a museum, they sort of wanted to pay homage to the name and, you know, placed or made the area attractive for beavers, most likely placed because animals and humans rarely co-alike well. Most of the time, yeah, we don't really work that well. But yeah, I wanted to build a beaver's dam or beaver's habitat. This actually was like a long-term thing already, because as I said before, I've been very vocal, especially on my streams, that I want beavers. And so I already had the idea to build a beaver habitat a week ago when the heat wave started and I basically started melting. So that idea got somewhat pushed back, but then the original idea was actually not a Dutch town and not even a series. It was a Norwegian style thing. I still have that, like I've built one Norwegian style home, so like those almost stereotypical red homes, or just really colorful homes. And then I decided, no, I wanted to build it in a Dutch zoo. And then I realized, wait, but Jare is also, if I'm right, building a Dutch zoo. And Rudy just posted a video where he built a beaver's dam. Damn it. And I can say that because you don't know for sure if I say the curse word or just damn it, as in put a damn in it. But anyway, so yeah, that was sort of annoying because I always try to, you know, not build something that everybody else is building or has, or let's just say better, someone else has already built it, but I really just wanted to build this. And then I was thinking like, all right, how can I do this differently than everybody else has? And well, the Beaver Habitat already looks a lot different than Rudy's habitat. And then I'm also probably going to build an other habitat, which, has he built an other habitat? I don't know. Yeah. But anyway, and then of course the Dutch thing, like, I mean, it was somewhat, well, how can I say this? It was coming because I'm Dutch, so at one point I'm going to build something Dutch because it's close to home and, you know, I can walk out my front door and get inspiration, because I think a lot of buildings in Beaversdam are going to be reminiscent of the buildings I see nearby, because I live in a tiny Dutch village where nothing ever happens, and all over my surroundings are tiny Dutch villages where nothing happens. Well, there's some things that has happened, but I don't know if that's safe to tell on YouTube. It does include a story about my cat, though. I can't tell that story on YouTube, though, because it's sure to give me that red demonetization mark. Yeah, can you tell that I've never been demonetized? Shockingly, because I curse sometimes, and I talk about mature subjects, but then all of the videos are like marked to be for like adults. But anyway, so trying to make it a little bit realistic, so because this is an old like harbor, I wanted to have like those, how do you call them? Again, names are never a strong suit of mine, but you have these on like old harbors where they basically would tie the ship to so that the ship wouldn't like move in the night or something. And then I thought, alright, if you just place some iron beams in between those, and then you can put a glass wall in. So this is just a very easy and quick way to make this into a habitat where the beavers can't escape. But then also not trying to limit them completely from like moving around in the water. So they can probably go into the big canal that's connected to it, but they shouldn't go into the smaller ones. Which I'm going to ask you guys here because I'm too lazy to look it up myself. But what's the English version of the word sloth? Because it's like I never really knew what the English version of it is. But yeah, that's the question of the day because I'm too lazy to look it up. Maybe I still have like a little bit of leftovers of the heat wave because squirrels don't do well in the heat. Yeah, this is the thing with like a heat wave in the Netherlands. It's not really the heat, it's just the humidity. Because while all of the other nations were conquering the world or the land, we Dutch people were conquering the seas, but did we really? Because everywhere surrounding us is water, so when it gets hot, humidity just skyrockets. And so again, I don't know if I'm going to make this into a full series. I know for sure that I wanted to build one more episode at least, building like the town and probably a church. Because I think in most villages you find at least one church unless it's really tiny, which I know that there's some of those villages where they are just so tiny. But that's going to be for Sunday, so I hope you enjoyed Beaversdam. If you want to see more, of course, tell me down below in the comments if you want to see like a specific European animal, because I'm going to make this a little bit more realistic with like it's a museum, so there's not going to be like giant pandas here because they wouldn't really be able to afford such a thing. If you want to see more just videos in general, of course, hitting the like and subscribe button helps out a great deal, and I wish you all an amazing non-melting day. Bye bye!